Okay. Can everybody see that screen?
Yes.
Should say
Yes.
Internet Security for Seniors. Okay, we've got one or two new people coming in, so I'll wait a couple of seconds. We'll start in about a minute.
Right.
Give everybody a fair chance.
Wow.
While you're
And
waiting,
Oops.
people to come in.
I tap more where?
You want me to come in? Is
Uh-huh.
it camera on?
No.
Okay. Well, that may, it won't let you if the camera's not on.
Can everybody please mute themselves until you actually ask a question? That would be great.
Is this for internet security for seniors? I thought this was for securing your access.
Say again?
Is this a Zoom presentation about internet security?
Yes, ma'am, that's what it says on the screen.
I thought the email said protecting your assets.
Taking your what?
Protecting your assets.
Yeah, same thing.
Okay.
They may have, you know, maybe just cut the description short.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
All right, we're going to begin now. So I did start the session last week, but because of the problems with the link, only one or two people here, I think one person, who figured out how to do it by copying the link and then pasting it into the browser, but that's okay. Why is this thing? Huh. This is weird. I'm sorry. I don't know what this thing is doing here. Let's start again. Right. Everybody see that now? Hello?
Hi there.
No, we don't
No,
see
we can't
anything.
see. We see you.
You see me?
your-
Well, that's
and
too
your
horrible
map.
that's too horrible to contemplate. You should be seeing that. Do you see that now?
No.
Let me start again. Sometimes Zoom is a little tricky and it can be a little messy. Just give me 1 or 2 seconds here and I will get this started up. Okay. There we go. How's that?
Yes.
Got it? Okay, so this is Internet Security for Seniors. And as someone pointed out, this is really aimed at how to protect your assets, right? So I'm not going to teach you on the internet how to use Facebook or any of that kind of stuff. I'm going to teach you how to understand what the hassles are, what things can go wrong, and how to stop the bad guys from causing you any harm at all. So I'll just skip past here. So that's really me. And the only reason I even have the screen, this particular slide, is at the bottom, you'll see my email address, jeff_kalvarisky@earthlink.net. If you'll write that down and send me an email after the session, I will actually send everybody who sends me an email, I will send you these very slides. So you'll be able to print them out and use them either during the sessions or for your own purposes as reminders of what we discussed. Just mention which course it is, because I do a whole bunch of courses. Just say it's the Internet Security course, and I'll be happy to send you the information. Okay, so basically, I'm going to go through this really quickly. I did it last week, but I want to get the highlights again, and then we'll get into the meat of the stuff. So I start this thing off by saying, a slide that says, who am I and why am I here? And that was a statement made by a guy named James Stockdale, who was vice president candidate back in '92. Interesting that we've got an election going on again now. I think he was Ross Perot's vice presidential candidate. And basically he was asking a very good question, is who am I? Why am I here? What am I providing for you? What am I bringing to you? But of course, the press took that as he didn't know who he was, and they made a joke of him, and that was the end of them, of his campaignship. So who are we and why are we here? This is an important thing. So really say, we're people, we're citizens, senior citizens, and we tend to be trusting, even naive sometimes, and you'll see why this is all kind of meaningful. And we're sometimes lonely, we want to communicate with other people. And we may be uncertain about all this new technology that's out there, the iPhones, the Androids, the tablets, the iPads, Facebook, Google, Twitter, on and on and on. More changes occurred. I've been in technology, since the 1960s, but more changes probably occurred in the last 5 or 10 years, probably less than 10 years, maybe 5 years, than in the previous 30 years. And there was a lot of change over, the previous 30 years. But it's changing. So that's important to know that. Why am I here? Well, probably I'm here because I'm concerned. Whenever you read about a problem on the internet, or you read about the internet in the newspaper, mostly it's what's gone wrong. Who got hacked, who lost information, who got scammed, who lost money, whose information was stolen. It's always bad news. That it never stops. About a year or two ago, for example, the city of Atlanta got, quote, hacked, and I unquote. And you'll see why I put that in quotes when we've gone a little bit further on. So they got hacked. Basically, the systems were brought down for weeks and weeks and weeks, which of course cost the city, which is, taxpayers like you and me, millions of dollars to fix this mess. And that was only part of the problem, which the press reported. They didn't report much about the stuff like, I'm about to have my water or electricity cut off because I haven't paid the bill. Today's the last day. You go down to pay your bill, and they can't take your money because they don't have access to your account, right? Well, that must have caused a lot of hurt to people. There was certainly the case where people stayed in jail, people who've been arrested by the cops and now had to come to their hearing after 2 or 3 days in jail, and they couldn't be let out because the city didn't have access to the records, so they didn't know who was in jail or which jail or why you were there and so on. Not funny at all, right? So there are really bad things that go on. And again, don't let me get by without explaining to you a little later on why I said they got hacked in inverted commas, right? In quote marks. So really we want to say, we're worried, we hear all that bad stuff. People want to clear my savings out, get access to my credit card, break into my apartment to abuse my cat and wear my clothes. No, that's just a joke. They don't want to do that. The days have changed when a bad guy wants to walk up behind you with a gun or a knife and hold you up and steal your purse. Those days are gone. They don't want to do that. It's too easy to get caught by the cops, right? What they want to do now is get into your assets, as we'll see, and they could be sitting in Nigeria or Ghana, which are 2 big places for scamming American seniors, or they could be in Kyrgyzstan or Russia or in Canada, Mexico. They could be anywhere in the world. They generally are not in places like Canada and Mexico where we could find them. They're in places like Kyrgyzstan and Nigeria and so forth. So even that person who seems to be really nice, who contacts you on the internet and speaks a really good English, maybe some dude in Ghana, right? Who's, his only job in life is to try and get access to your hard-earned saving. But really, worst of all is the bottom line, stealing my identity. And that's a completely new crime that literally didn't exist 20 years ago. How did you steal my identity? Other than, people could assume someone else's identity. If somebody had died, they could go get a new driver's license, that name and so on. But that isn't what this means anymore. This means a scammer can If I'm a scammer, I can actually steal your identity, pretend to be you. I have access to your credit card details and your social security number and so on. And then I can go do things like, you know, if it's a small scale scam, I'll go buy a TV set with your credit card. If it's a big scam, which happened to somebody I know, I'll go take out a mortgage and buy a house. So a friend of mine actually got a letter of demand from a bank that said they were foreclosing on his house in Las Vegas because he was now 6 months behind or whatever on the mortgage payment. He said, "What are you talking about? I've never even been in Las Vegas, let alone own a house there." Well, long story short, it turned out that he was the victim of identity theft, and these guys had gone and bought a house. They got credit, you know, $300,000. They bought the house. They then took out loans against the house. You know, you can get cash against your mortgage, and they'd taken the cash, $50,000 or $60,000, and they'd headed for South America or wherever. And now he's stuck not only with you know, a bad credit rating because now they foreclosed on the house, but he owes that money. The bank wants their $300,000 back, and it took him about 5 years to fix the mess. So identity theft is the fastest growing crime today, and we need to be very aware of it and very cautious about it. But I'm going to tell you a lot more as we go forward about what you can and cannot do. So I say, you know, what can we do? Well, you know, you can ignore it. I've certainly had people in my class who say, I don't go online, I don't shop online, I don't watch movies online. Well, that's fine, you know, but that's like saying, you know, well, this was more of a real case when I was still teaching in person in the class. It's like, as I used to say, that's like staying at home and not ever going out because you're too scared to walk on the roads or drive on the road. Of course, we're all staying at home anyway, but it's very similar. Just, you know, if you know, the internet is where it all is today, and if you don't, you know, utilize the internet, you're essentially depriving yourself of one of the greatest tools ever built by mankind. So let's move on, and I come to this point here. This handsome dude on the right is a guy named Sun Tzu, and he was a general in ancient China in the 5th or 6th century, in the 5th century BCE, before the current era. And he wrote this famous book called The Art of War. And I don't know what it says there in Chinese script, but I presume it says it's the Mandarin version of The Art of War, of how to fight wars. And I'm not going to teach you how to fight wars. We're not here in the military. But what he said was, know your enemy and know yourself. That's an impressive statement. It seems such a simple statement, but I'm going to look at it in terms of what we're doing here. So that's a quote from his book. Book is still in publication. General Norman Schwarzkopf actually said he used the tricks of the trade that were in the book in the first Gulf War, you know, where he pretended they were going to attack this way, and then they attacked that way, and, you know, beat Saddam Hussein. So the question now is, how does this apply to us? So first of all, he said, know yourself. So say, what do I know about me? You know, people said to me, why do I need this class? Well, nobody's targeting me. I haven't done anything. I'm just an ordinary person. I'm retired. You know, I don't even work anymore. I haven't got, nobody hates me. Well, the point is that they do want to get you. No matter who you are, they do want to get you. So first of all, they know that when we grew up, we didn't have smartphones and tablets and Facebook and Google and Amazon and all the rest of that stuff. And therefore, we're not fully up to date, most of us, on things technical, okay? The internet is still not quite as simple as driving your car, where you need to know nothing about how an engine works. The only time you ever need to know about the engine of your car is if it doesn't work. But most times you get in, turn on the car, and you can drive, and that's that. And as long as you put gas in and have it serviced occasionally, that car will run fine for 25 years, even though you don't know the first thing about the engine. Now, the internet's is getting in that direction, but it's not quite there yet. And there are some gnarly details that we really need to know a little bit about without getting into too much technical detail. And here's a very important one. We tend to be law-abiding citizens who respect and obey authority. You know, mostly if a cop or the IRS or somebody, you know, asks me a question or stops me in the street or whatever, I'm mostly going to say yes, sir, or no, ma'am, and I'm going to answer the question And that is a desirable trade, but the bad guys know about it and they're going to use it against us, as we will see. We also maybe, want to communicate with our friends, our family, whether they're somewhere in America or in another country, right? We like to do good works. Many of us join societies. We work with our churches and societies. We work for the Society of Prevention of Cruelty to animals, or hospitals, or whatever. All really, really good things. We like movies. Many of us want to watch old movies. And most important, and this is again what I should know about me, most of us are retired and we have some money. We have some savings, some investments, some social security payments, whatever. And it actually doesn't matter, believe it or not. If you've got $500 in savings, or you've got $10 million in savings, these guys, whom we'll learn a little more about as we move forward, will take it, right? It used to be the old days that the guy with the gun and you stick in your back, he just wants to take whatever you got in your wallet. So you got $50 in your wallet, he'll take that. But he wasn't the guy going after, the millionaire. The millionaire people, they're special criminals who go after them, and they are, scammers as well. But now these guys are kind of spread evenly. Whether they take $1 million from one guy or they take $50 from 10,000 people each, doesn't matter to them, because it costs them about the same, right? And either way, they get access to that money. So it's not even a question that, gee, I'm a lucky guy and I got 10 million in the bank. I wish. It's that whatever you've got, and it may not even be money, as I said, it could be just information, in which case they steal your identity and then get access to money that you didn't even have. For example, as I said, by taking out a mortgage in your name. Every single one of us is a target. So yeah, the point is that these are all fine character traits, but crooks will try to exploit them to achieve their goals. And what they want to get to is on the right hand, the bottom right hand corner, your stocks, your bonds, your cash, your credit cards, your debit card, whatever you've got, they would like to get access to. So listeners, what do we need to know about them, about the bad guys? Okay, they may be common crooks. They may be what we call script kiddies, which are just nuisances. And today there may even be professionals, nation states like Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, which are literally targeting individuals or companies and disseminating fake news and also attacking the companies. So about, 7 or 8 years ago, one of the big film companies made a movie about North Korea, and they weren't very complimentary about North Korea's leader, and the North Koreans got really upset about that, and they hacked into this company and brought the whole system down, and it cost them many tens of millions of dollars to fix the mess. They were out of business for I think it was a couple of months that they were back to doing business on paper and by making individual phone calls. But all their files, all the computer information was essentially gone, and they had to recreate it. That's mess coming from North Korea. But if they're going to attack me, they may try and steal my information, and I'll talk to you about that as well. But more important is that they really can disseminate fake news to you, and you'll see what kind of fake news that might come to you, which can actually result in a bad situation for yourself. We'll talk about that in due course. So, here's, as an example, our friend Bernie Madoff. He was an early cyber crook. He didn't really use the computer as such, but the computer was used essentially as a tool to print out fake statements that people gave him money, and then he would print statements out every month, every year, showing how your money was growing nicely by 12% or whatever, and everybody was very happy. You give him $1,000, and in a couple of years you got $2,000, and then $4,000. It was really great. Of course, it was all fake because the computer was just really being used to print junk out. But that shows you that even simple scam like that can take away billions of dollars, and essentially he probably ruined a lot of people's lives because naive people, and some were very smart, not only the average Joe like me or you, but some very, very smart people got caught up in this. And I'll tell you some examples of people who've lost real assets who are actually very smart, doctors and lawyers and so on. So it's not just because we're stupid, it's that these guys are very, very, very clever. Bernie Madoff was clever, and his scam went on for 20 years before they caught him. The current generation are actually a lot cleverer and a lot smarter, and they have the advantage that they almost certainly will never ever be able to be. They'll never be caught. Sorry, 1 second here. They'll never be caught because, like I said, they're in Iran or they're in Kyrgyzstan or Afghanistan or someplace where it's unlikely we're ever going to be able to catch them. Right, so, okay, more, I said, be careful, they're absolutely ruthless, and they will use every trick in the book to scam you into letting them in the door. Now that line, that second line, is possibly the most important line in all the slides of this entire course, and it kind of hardly, doesn't look like much. But basically, if you notice that the word door is in inverted commas in quotes, and that's why I said when these companies get hacked, or people get hacked, they don't really get hacked. There's actually no such thing as hacking. And when I used to give the class in person, at this point in time, I would hold up my cell phone and actually make the statement that nobody, not the CIA in the United States, not the KGB in Russia, not the North Koreans, nobody can get into my phone. These phones are, and your laptop, are very, very, very secure today. So then the question is, how do all this hacking happen? How come it's always in the newspaper? Well, the point is that the word hacking actually in most cases is nonsense. Because really what happened, they didn't break through the walls. It's not like, to beat Saddam Hussein, we had to put together hundreds of thousands of troops and guns and airplanes and tanks and whatever. It's not like that at all, right? Basically, they will fool you or somebody into letting them in the door, open the door. So my classic example here is if I go on vacation and I leave my front door open with a note on saying back in a week, and then I come back in a week and sure enough, my TV set's gone. Well, shame on the guy who stole my TV set, but who's really at fault here? And the answer obviously is me, right? I left the front door open. I was careless, right? Just as, if we're careless while driving our car, the results can be tragic. But if I take my phone or my laptop and or my iPad, and I allow the bad guy in, I say, come in, Mr. Bad Guy. I trust you. I know you won't do me any harm. Well, that's like bringing some, homeless person off the street into your house without knowing who they are or anything. The chances are high, no disrespect to anybody, but that you'll probably get ripped off, okay? Especially in this case where the way they get in the door, and we'll see much more about it, is they gain your confidence, right? Well, one of two things. They either gain your confidence by pretending to be on your side and wanting to help you, or they get in the door by threatening you and scaring you, like the IRS. We're the IRS and we're coming to arrest you because you haven't paid your taxes. You didn't pay taxes in 1993. Well, 1993, I think I paid. No, we're coming to arrest you unless you pay the taxes, which is $242.12. Well, most of us are good people and we'd rather pay the $242.12 than go to jail. But of course, there is no such $242.12 tax bill. It's all nonsense. And if they do that, 10,000 times, which is not hard for them to do, well, you can figure out that there's quite a lot of money in it to be made. Okay, so the next thing is before we get on to the actual internet, I'm going to start with what's sort of the partial internet, and that's your phone itself, right? And most of us, I think, we'll see in the next section. In fact, let me just jump ahead here. Let's get these. Okay, we'll talk about in the next section about one of the things that is the bane of all of our lives, and that's the robocalls that you get. Many of them are just advertising, or today you get lots of calls asking you to vote for this candidate or that candidate. But after a while, they are more than a nuisance. But the advertising, the ones trying to sell you junk, and the political calls are just inheritant. The real dangerous ones are the ones where what they do is they say, you get a call, and this happened to a friend of mine. This is Microsoft, but it could also be the IRS. That happened to me, or Google, or your bank calling. And Microsoft happened to my friend. They told him that they had discovered he had a major virus on his computer, and that the bad guys who created this virus were going after, we're going to go after his assets, and he just had to pay some money and they would help him out. And of course, it was complete rubbish. Luckily, he managed to call me and managed to save him literally at the last minute. He had already purchased gift cards at Target for $4,000, which he was going to give the number to these bad guys. We managed to stop that. But I've had a call where the IRS said they were going to arrest my daughter. So somehow they knew who my daughter was because she hadn't paid taxes in the prior year. Well, I do her taxes, and I knew she didn't earn any money because she was at college. She was a student, and I could handle these guys. But when my wife got the call, her hair was on fire because, oh my God, the IRS coming to arrest our child. It's only $300. Let's pay it. No, don't pay it. Don't pay it. It's fake. So that's number one. And we'll talk about how to stop these scam calls in a moment. Snail mail, you get letters, but nobody sends fake letters anymore for a very simple reason. A letter costs money. You got to put it in an envelope and seal it up and put a 44-cent stamp on. The bad guys don't want to spend any money. So the main one is that they will send you emails, of course, right? And they are also looking for you anywhere you might be using a debit or a credit card, right? Which is the ATM, the gas station, a restaurant, when we used to go to restaurants, doctor's offices, and so on. And I just take a side issue here. Don't use debit cards. I mentioned last time, and we'll go over it again. Basically, a debit card is linked to your bank account, right? And if they can get the details of the debit card, then they get into your bank account, and by the time you know about it, the money's gone, and the bank can't get it out. It can't get it back, excuse me, because they will have moved the money out of your bank account into their bank account, and then taken out the cash or moved it to an account in Mexico or in the Cayman Islands or whatever. And these guys are really good at that kind of thing. So don't use debit cards, just a bit of advice for regular shopping. I was behind a lady at Kroger the other day, and she took out her debit card. I saw her put it in the machine, and I clearly could see she keyed in the PIN number, 1234. So now all I got to do is grab that debit card and run like heck, which, actually happened to a friend of mine where the bad guy grabbed his card and ran and nobody stopped him. But now he knows the PIN number. So if I had done that, I would know the PIN number and I could head straight for an ATM and clean out her bank account, right? Or go online and transfer money. So don't use a debit card. Debit card is useful for drawing cash, but everything else, preferably one should always use a credit card, because with a credit card, the bank will always give you your money back, right? So just a little aside, I know a lot of people use their debit cards, but it's a very dangerous thing to do. If nobody knows the PIN number, that's fine, then you're okay, but you just don't know how they do that. I got a call just a couple of months ago that somebody had duplicated my Visa card and was using it in Florida or somewhere. How they got the details, how they could create the card, how they had the CVV and expiration dates and all that, I have no idea, right? It probably happened at a doctor's office, where I gave them a credit card and that information lay around and somebody saw it, and, something like that, some way that I don't know at all. But if it had been a debit card, my bank account would have been cleaned out. Okay, so again, all of these things are going to happen to you: robocalls, scam emails, fake Facebook posting. Facebook was, my first course at Benson that I ever did was how to use Facebook for seniors. And I now say, I don't run the course anymore because generally, since I've been more looking at security here, Facebook's a cesspool. It's a wonderful, wonderful, clever idea, which the bad guys have taken over as a fine way to get at people like you and me. And to get us to drop our guard. You know, you might get a message from somebody in Facebook saying, hey, you know, I'm Tom. I sat behind you in math class in Atlanta High School in 1965. And you know, I don't remember any Tom, but hey, he knows about me. He knows, you know, the name of the teacher and the school and all that, but they can find that stuff out about us. And once we start communicating with them, they have one and only one goal, which again is to get at your assets. So let's talk about what the details are. But I just want to remind you again about our friend, Mr. Sun Tzu. He said, know yourself and know your enemy. Or actually, he put it in a slightly different term, in more classical. He said, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Because what he's saying, if you know the enemy's strengths and his weaknesses, more important or as important, you know your own strengths and weaknesses. In the military sense, you know, if you don't know you have a weakness on your right flank, as Saddam Hussein didn't realize, and that's what Schwarzkopf exploited, then the enemy, that's where the enemy is going to hit you, right? So you need to know that I have this weakness. And some of this I'm going to be teaching you in the next few sessions is what is our weakness when we get emails and letters of demand and stuff like that. So keep this in mind. You know, we need to know about the enemy, and I'm going to teach you a lot more about it, but know yourself, you know, what am I prone to do? And most of us are prone to reacting, right? So if you get this letter, this phone call of demand, or you know, by either scaring you or there's somebody who's trying to help you, like my friend with the call from Microsoft, which it obviously wasn't, you know, we react, our heart starts to beat, we don't want to get into trouble with the government. And if somebody's there to help us, well, you know, like I said earlier on, we tend to be a little naive. And if there's somebody who wants to help me, well, gee, thank God, I'll accept his help. Meanwhile, of course, the IRS is not going after you. Microsoft has not found a virus on your computer. And of course, the nice guy who's trying to help you is only trying to help himself. And he wants to help himself to your money. So another point, look around the poker table. So this is the first time now we'll talk about the internet. If you can't see the sucker, you're it. It's attributed to Warren Buffett. So, you know, somebody says to you, you know, using this as an example, hey, you know, we have a poker game every Saturday night, small stakes, you know, you can lose 20 bucks or 10 bucks or something. You play small amount. How'd you like to play? And you come and you arrive at the table and there's 5 people around the table and you don't know who the sucker is, then you're it, right? In other words, somebody's going to lose their underwear, so to speak, or go home in their underwear, and they're going to have lost their clothes plus all their money, and that's likely to be you. And so the real issue, and I leave this to you as a question, okay? Let's take an example. Many of us use Gmail, and of course we all use lots of useful stuff on Google or on Apple. Google gives us free mail on Gmail. The Gmail's. Also, Google allows us to ask any kind of questions we like on the internet. We can ask any question we like. We can't ask who's going to win the presidential election because nobody knows that. But we can ask any other question we like, from who won the World Series in 1952 to, you know, when did man land on the moon and who was the first man who landed on the moon. We can ask any question, the sort of stuff that we used to have to go to the library for when we were at school or at college, right? How much does Google charge us for all that? And the answer obviously is Google doesn't charge us anything. So the obvious question you should ask yourself, if Google's not charging me for every time I send an email on Gmail, or they're not charging me every time I ask a question, how did they become a multi-billion-dollar company? In fact, Android, which is the operating system on non-iPhone phones, on Android phones, that operating system, which is a very complicated piece of software, Google wrote it and gives it away free. Any vendor, anybody who can make a phone can get their operating system for free, which is why there's 47 at least different manufacturers who make Android phones, but there's only one that makes iPhones or using the Apple operating system, and that's Apple themselves. So if they give everything away for free, how do they make so much money? And the answer, of course, is when you go online, when you do shopping or buying an airline ticket or whatever, somebody is watching you all the time, not in a bad way, but in a sense of who are you, what do you do, what are your preferences and so forth. And then that information is being sold quite legally to people who need it in order to be able to advertise to you. So if I run a ladies' shoe shop in Sandy Springs and I would like to have a sale, now in the old days, I would print out flyers and somebody would take them around and deposit them in people's mailboxes and so on. And everybody knows, including me, that 2/3 of those went straight in the round file. They got tossed, right? So it's a waste of my time and money, mostly money because the flyers cost money. But I didn't know. I have to have somebody put a flyer in every mailbox because I don't know which mailbox has got people who might buy my lady shoes. Well, today you can go to Google and it's happening right now. It happens all the time. There are auctions going on. And Google, you can go to Google now, right now, and say, I would like to know all the ladies, let's say it's a lady shoe store, of this demographic, this age group, this economics group, and so on. Let's say I'm selling very expensive Manolo Blahniks shoes, that cost $600 each. Well, I'd want a particular economic area to sell that in, or maybe I'm just selling, sneakers. Doesn't matter. You can get from Google an entire list exactly matching the demographic and the age group and the economic ability, economic standard, and so on of those people, right? And then now when I send out my ads for my sale at my lady shoe store, I'll send out, let's say, 1,000 of the messages. I'm just using a number. The likelihood is that 700 of them will actually get to somebody who will read it. 300 may still toss it. But in the old days, it could be that all of them got tossed. We never really knew. Now I can exactly target you or me. So the chances are that I will not get ads for ladies' shoes or ladies' dresses or whatever on Amazon, but I may well get ads for, books on computers or computer technology and so on. They know what I'm interested in and they know what you're interested in. So, as they say, Google, what Google is selling is you. They're selling you and they're selling me, or not actually selling us, but selling our proclivities, the things we like to do, right? And sometimes it's really true to say that they have learned more about you and me than we know about ourselves, right? They know exactly. And so, if you ever look for a hotel, for example, they will now know from which kind of hotel you looked at. Did you look at, a 5-star hotel or a 2-star hotel? They know a lot about you. So next time I travel, that level of hotel, whether it's a 2-star or a 5-star, will appear because they know what I am. It's no good trying to sell the average Joe on a $500 a night fancy schmancy hotel. But on the other hand, you don't want to, a $50 a night is no good giving to some CEO of some big company. That's a total waste of time. The CEO of the big company wants the $500 a night. And maybe you and I are perfectly happy with the $50 a night 2-star hotel. So they know that information about us already. And that's important to bear in mind. So now let's look at email. Excuse me, I'm going to go back one step. I promised you a little bit more advice on these robo calls, and I don't really have any slides on that. I should put a few slides in, but I'm going to tell you about it. So believe it or not, there actually is a way to fight back against these guys who don't stop calling you. I have 5 calls today alone from scammers on my phone. And even if you don't talk to them or you don't get scammed, it's a pain in the neck when your phone's ringing all the time. And it's either, some guy trying to sell you life insurance or improve body parts that you don't even have, or it really is, somebody trying to get at you, like my friend with a scam from Microsoft. So the good news is, in the old days, if you have a landline is just a landline. Basically, there's not much you can do about it, right? But when you have a cell phone, a smartphone, you actually have a computer. And once you have a computer, we can use that computer to fight the bad guys. So there's a useful piece of software, and please write this down. I'll try and have some slides by next week and we can look at the slide. But there are several of these pieces of software that will allow you to fight back. Why the telcos, the telephone companies like AT&T and Verizon and so on, aren't stopping most of this crap, I don't know. But they've chosen not to because probably it's going to cost them money, you know, if they need to filter all the call. Well, now, lately, I think the federal government has leaned on AT&T and Verizon, etc. And I now, when a call comes through, I sometimes will see actually on the call as it rings, scam, right? Possible scam. It tells me that. But I don't need to bother about that because I got a better solution. So there's a little piece of software called Hiya, H-Y-A. H-I-Y-A, like saying Hiya, H-I-Y-A. And you can get that on the Apple Store or you can get it at the Google Play Store. So it's either on the Apple, the App Store or the Play Store. And you install it on your computer and it basically needs nothing else. It doesn't need any special work at all. All you do is you install it. And it used to be free, but I think now it's $3 or $4 or $5, less than $5 a month, which to me is amply worth not getting any calls. And the way Hiya works is very simple. It maintains a gigantic database somewhere out on the internet of all these scammers, of the phone numbers. And of course, these guys are creating new numbers all the time, but still, there's a very, very big database out there. And when your phone rings and you've got Hiya, the first thing that Hiya does is it checks that incoming number in milliseconds. You can't even see it, it's so fast, against your own contact list, your name and address list in your phone. If that number is in your phone, then the phone will ring in the normal way because it's your wife, it's your husband, it's your daughter, it's your son, it's your boss, it's a friend, it's somebody that you know, right? It assumes if that number, 404-123-4567 or 1-800-123-4567, if that's in your name and address list, then you probably know who this person is and nothing changes. The phone rings, you answer it and so on. If the number is not in your name and address list, it then goes and looks on this gigantic database on the internet. And again, this only takes a second or two. If it finds the number there, and we'll see how that number gets there in a second, that call goes into the crapper, pardon the expression, right there and then the phone will stop. So several times today already my phone has gone ring, and then that's it, it's gone. Because in that time that the first ring took, and sometimes it doesn't even ring once, but at the most it'll ring once, Hiya has picked up that number and then it cancels the call. That's it. They get I don't know what signal they get there that this number is unobtainable, your number, or just that, you know, you didn't answer. I'm not sure, but basically they don't get through to you. The question then is, how do these numbers get on the database? And the answer is, you and I put them there. So if enough people all have Hiya on their phones, then every time, let's say one of these scammers does get through to me. So a call comes through, I pick it up, and it's either one of these irritating, insurance salesmen trying to sell you Medicare insurance or, car insurance or some junk. All you have to do is press one button on your Hiya. So you go to Hiya, which has got a button on your phone, you click on Hiya, and you say, block this number. This number that just called me is some kind of scam. You can put in a report of why it was a scam, that it's an insurance salesman or whatever. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to put in the report. Not only will that number be blocked for you, but that number will be now blocked for all of the other millions of people who are currently using Hiya. And just as you are blocking numbers, so I'm blocking numbers, which will protect you, and the next guy's blocking numbers, which protects both of us, and so on. There's nothing to learn. There's no installation required other than just to install it from the App Store, from the Google Play Store, and then Hiya does its job. Like I say, it now costs about, I think it's less than $5, $3 or $4 a month, something like that, which I think is money well worth spent. And it's quite satisfying to see these calls go into the garbage. And it's also gives me a good feeling when one does get through and then I block it, to know that I've now protected all of you guys if you've got Hire as well. So, you know, I'm not advertising Hire. I don't get paid by them at all. I don't get any commission on it, but I found it an extremely useful piece of software. And at the price, it means you'll never get, not never, but you'll almost never get another scam type call. That may have stopped my friend, let's say, nearly lost, you know, several $1,000s to these guys, and that would have just been the first installment. Once they got $500 from you, then they get 1,000, and they won't get 10,000. Eventually, they'll take everything that you've got. They're really brilliant at that. This would have stopped it. So just an aside here, HIYA, Hire. There are others. Hire is now not the only one, but I found Hire is so easy to use. There's literally nothing to do. And if a call does get through to you and it's a scam, you have to press one button. But that also brings me to another point, and I'll make this point and then we'll move forward. And the same as this point will apply to email. If you get a phone call and you look at the call and you do not recognize the number, it's not somebody who's in your address list and it says it's your daughter or your son or your wife or your husband or a friend. If you don't recognize the number, do not ever answer it. Let me say it again. Never, ever answer a call that you don't recognize the number. Now, the logical question to say to me is, well, what if it's somebody important? Like it's a new doctor. I went to a doctor and they've done a test and the doctor's office are calling back to give me the results of my test. And, you know, obviously I wouldn't recognize the number because perhaps it's a new doctor or it's coming from the laboratory or something like that. Well, basically there's no big problem there, because if somebody's calling you that you don't recognize the number and they are honest people, they will leave you a message. You will have a voicemail that says, this is Dr. Smith's office, or this is XYZ laboratory office, and we're calling to give you the results of your test, or this is your bank calling, or, you know, some reasonable reason for making a call. This could be me calling you. Let's say I call all of you next week and say, I'm canceling the lesson, or we're starting at 2 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock. You don't recognize my phone number, but I'll leave you a message. I'll say, this is Jeff, and I'm calling you about our Tuesday training class, and it's going to be postponed or canceled or whatever the information might be, right? So I just let the thing ring, and that's another way. If they leave you a message, they were honest. If that phone number rings and there's no message, 99 times out of 100, that was a scam of some kind, right? Either an irritating advertising call or a real scammer trying to get at your money and scare you, or you know, tell you some lies that are going to help them to get access to your assets. So giving you 2 rules already. Don't use debit cards. If you know, for general shopping, it's not a good idea. Use a credit card. And even if you don't have a credit card, it's easy to get one these days. You know, you can get prepaid credit cards that give you the same protection as a regular credit card. So even if you're having difficulty getting the regular credit cards because the credit checks are getting quite strong these days, get a prepaid credit card. Don't use a debit card. The worst that can happen with a credit card is, the worst is that they will hold you responsible for $50. In fact, they very seldom, if ever, do that. Mainly the bank just stops the transaction, reverses it, and it doesn't cost you anything. Debit card, by the time you learn about it, the money's gone. And then the second thing I've said to you is don't answer calls that you don't recognize the number. Now let's talk about emails. All of us get lots and lots of emails. I want to take you a little deeper, and I did go into this last week, but I want to do it again and maybe get a little deeper this time. Here is some of my spam to my inbox in one day. In fact, it's not even a fraction of it. It was just more and more and more. It went down. I couldn't fit it on the page. But I want to look at it a little more carefully than most people do, because mostly we say this is garbage and we delete it. But like everything else, when you start to put a microscope on stuff, you may well learn something interesting. So let's look at them. So, you know, if you look down, there are 2 columns. One says sender, and the rightmost column says subject. So look at the subject: cannabis gummy chewables, canvas prints, Terminix pest control, bladder improvement. Oh my God, I need that. $5,000 in one day, and so on and so on and so on. So, oh wow, there are all kinds of interesting offers here. Let's see what we can elicit on the left-hand side. So first of all, I'm going to start with the second one. That one is We reserved this sale for you, 85% all canvas prints. You see that on the right. On the left, it says easy, essay, not essay, and not easy, but essay. So really spelling errors make me, twitchy, but forget about that. Look just slightly to the right, you'll see there's a less than sign, an arrow to the left, and a right than sign, and in the middle is the email address. So it's got some strange name, 1PA blah, 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 at cronjob.org, right? So all email addresses are something dot something, like Gmail, gmail.com would be an address, or Microsoft.com, or in my case, earthlink.net. But this says cronjob.org. ORG means it's an organization, a not-for-profit. Well, I never heard of a not-for-profit called Cronjob, and it's unlikely that a not-for-profit would be trying to sell me stuff, wouldn't it? So that's already an indication this is garbage. Look at the next one down. 3 Terminix Pest Control. Again, between those two arrows, the one pointing to the left and the one pointing to the right, garbage name at cronjob.org. Wow. Let's look at the next one. Bladder improvement. Same thing between the two arrows, garbage name at cronjob.org. And if you read all the way down, you'll see almost all of them are cronjob.org. So that means that this organization, whatever it might be, called cronjob.org, is a pretty impressive organization. They sell everything from canvas prints to bladder improvement to free money, right? See the one about 5 down? You can get up to $5,000 in as soon as one business day. Well, if you really think about it, is there ever any one company that does so many different possible businesses, all of which want your business? And the answer, of course, is no. None of them are real. They're all garbage. They're created by some dude sitting in an internet cafe in Nigeria or Ghana or Kyrgyzstan or somewhere. May not even have his own computer. These guys literally sit in internet cafes. They pay for a day on the computer, which costs them $50. And in that one day, they can earn hundreds of thousands of dollars by scamming you and me with these kind of junk emails, right? So something that we've never looked at before is where is this information coming from? Where are these emails coming from? And you see right away that it tells you it's a scam because it's coming from one place or 2 places. But there's I can assure you, I did not purposely choose this group of stuff out. I just chose one day when I was doing this presentation. I just took the previous day's garbage, spam, and I printed it out, put it on here, and that's it. I did not pre-choose it. And you can see that there's somebody who uses this address, cronjob.org, which is obviously a fake, and I have no idea where it is, but it cannot possibly be true. So the question is, why are they sending it to me, right? And, well, the next thing people say is, well, why doesn't Uncle Sam help us? And I won't go into details here because it's not worth it, but basically Uncle Sam is completely asleep at the switch. They passed some laws that aren't worth the paper they printed on. They literally are not worth the paper they printed on. Complete waste of time. Uncle Sam hasn't helped us with this. The email companies are trying, but still a lot of it gets through. We need much better protection against this kind of garbage, and we're not getting it, and I'm just going to move on. But what I want to talk to you about now, before we end off, is what is an email? Well, an email is an electronic communication, usually sent over the internet, and it has several standard parts. You don't even know about it, but we're going to talk about them. So the first part is the header, and you can see most of you have seen something like that, whether you use Gmail or you use AOL.com or any other internet service provider, ISP, they call it, an internet service, whichever one you use, doesn't matter. They all look more or less the same. You have a from, who sent it to you, a to, which should be you, a subject, something about what they're doing, what this email is, what they're doing on the email, why they're sending it to you, what the subject matter is, and a date, okay? So the from is an email address. It's usually an email address. And we'll talk about how that's structured in a moment. I'm going to break that down for you. The to is your email address. You would expect it to be either your name, right? Because if if somebody knows who I am, they will have my name in their name and address list, and it won't be just my email address like this one is. It would actually have my name, Jeff Kalbrisky, right, which would translate into this email address and the subject and the date. Okay, let's look at, we'll come to the details in a second. So besides the header, there's the body, the actual email, the text of the email. And I'm just using this one as an example, an email that I actually got. So it's got a bunch of text, but it's also got this single line in the middle, https:// blah, 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 in blue underline. And that was an interesting thing that came in much later in email. The blue underline is a link, or what we call a hyperlink. And it means that that link is directing me to somewhere on the internet, right? It's like I'm getting into somebody's car, you get into my car, and I give you a ride to Atlanta Airport or Perimeter Mall or something like that, right? It's taking you directly there. It was a very clever idea. Unfortunately, like many good, clever ideas, the bad guys have figured out how to use it to their advantage. So be aware that an email can have a link in, just like you guys today got the email from Benson that had the link to this course. That would be in an email, or it could even be in another document like the schedule. The schedule document has the links in as well, right? So you can have documents that contain links, and you can have emails that contain links, right? And this is an address somewhere on the internet, somewhere we don't always know. Now, let's look at the from email address, and it's important that you understand this. It's not very difficult stuff, because that will allow you very rapidly to assess the garbage from the real stuff. And sometimes the garbage is very cleverly disguised, as you will see. I'll give you a whole bunch of examples, probably starting next time. So the email address has essentially 4 components, right? I've got the 3 boxes in red, green, and blue, and then the 2 arrows, the left arrow and the right arrow, which are marked number 2, and then an @ sign in the middle. So the first part, which is sometimes in inverted commas, in quote marks, not necessarily, would be either the name of the person who sent it to you, Jeff Kalbrisky, or it might be a department, Amazon customer service, or something like that. But it doesn't really mean anything. It could be anything they like. So don't depend on that. Even though it says Amazon, it may not come from Amazon, right? That's just text. That's like, your nickname, right? That can be anything you like. Then there are the 2 arrows, the left and the right. You can see both number 2. And then in the middle, we have a name, the bit in green, the @ sign, and then where it came from, what we call the domain of the sender, the domain. So the name in front of the @ sign will either be a person's name. It could be it came from me, would have my name, or it came from a department of a company, like store news or customer service or something like that, and then either the company or the ISP, the internet service provider, that was the origin of the email. So if it came from a company, it would say Amazon.com or AT&T.com or Benson.org, right? It may the originating organization. If it's not an organization, if it's just you or me sending emails, it would say your ISP, or internet service provider. So it could be gmail.com, AOL.com, yahoo.com, any of the dozens of email addresses. My one is earthlink.net, right? Mindspring.com. These are Earthlink and Mindspring are 2 big ISPs that are based right here in Atlanta, right? So all of the emails look like that. It could be yahoo.com, hotmail.com, IBM.com, AOL.com, ATT.com, any of those alternatives. And generally, this will be intelligible, right? Let's say you are getting an email from AT&T, or you're getting an email from Amazon, or you're getting an email from somebody who wants to contact you, either a friend who's sending you an email or a company that is sending you advertising. So now let's look and see how we tell whether something is it spam or scam, right? Spam, I don't know why this junk email is called spam. Spam is a kind of a meat that comes in a can, perfectly, good product. But some other bad emails got called spam, and spam is either just junk email like that they're trying to sell me something, they want to sell me insurance or some garbage, or mostly today they are scams. That's stuff where they're trying to fool you. So let's look at an email offer I recently received. It says here, take this 30-second survey about Amazon, qualify for amazing trials. Choose from exclusive offers worth at least $50. Take the survey now. So notice how clever this is. First of all, it's just a survey. Well, what can go wrong with writing, me answering a survey? I'm not spending any money. It's not asking me to enter a competition. Just tell them which products you like, what kind of shoes you like, or what kind of computers you like, or whatever, and take the survey now. But let's look at the header of this email. So it says from Amazon to Jeff Calvarisky at earthlink.net, subject Jeff_Calvarisky, please respond, and the date. Okay. So notice now we look a little more detailed. So most people will just look at this and see the word Amazon, that first word Amazon. Now remember I said before, it either is in inverted commas, it's in quote marks, or sometimes it's not, but it's actually nothing. It doesn't mean anything. They can put anything they like in there. Obviously, if they're trying to scam you, they're going to put Amazon in there, something that you trust and are not worried about. But since it doesn't mean anything, let's look a little more deeply. Remember the two arrows? There they are. You can see the left arrow and the right arrow. Inside, we've got the @ sign in the middle. And on the left of the @ sign, we've got this garbage name, 5NTGC72, right? Should be a person's name or a department. So if this really came from Amazon, it would say Amazon Marketing Department or Amazon Customer Service or something. But it says, some computer-generated junk, right? That's already an indication. And then look at the actual domain. It's an organization called modernstealing.com. This one I absolutely love. I swear to you, I did not make this up. This is a real email that I got at modernstealing.com, right? So basically, they're telling you that they want to steal your money, right? Why do they not try to disguise that? Does anybody tell me why they actually say we're from modernstealing.com, right? I mean, if you get an ad in the mail from Crooks R Us, you're probably not going to call the 800 number because Crooks R Us is telling you that you're going to get into trouble. The reason they don't try and hide it is very simple. 99.99999% of people never look at that. They see the Amazon, they don't look at the detail, and they think, this is from Amazon, right? And now looking on the left, the picture, how do I actually do the survey? Well, that orange box at the bottom, take the survey now, is actually a link. So not only can links be, in that blue with the underline, links can be buried in a picture as well. So behind that, take the survey now, that orange box, sort of imagine behind it, there's a link. And when I click on that part of that diagram, of that picture, it will take me to somewhere that I would expect would be Amazon.com, but clearly I'm going to go to modernstealing.com, right? Now, here's take the survey now. Now notice, in many cases, most of these emails you get will have an unsubscribe. And that you can see is just the normal blue text with a line under it. So you can click on that and tell these guys, take me off your list. So I want to warn you right now, never click on unsubscribe unless you know for sure what the company is you're dealing with. So if you get an email from AT&T or Microsoft or Bank of America or wellsfargo.com, and it's actually from wellsfargo.com or bankofamerica.com or microsoft.com, you can probably click on that link. But if it's a scammer, If you click on that link, you think he's going to take you off his list? Hell no. Not only is he not going to take you off the list, you've now told him that this is a good email. So the question then is, are you going to get more scam emails or fewer? And naturally, the answer to that is you're going to get more. Do not click on unsubscribe, right? Now, mostly it's not going to do you any harm. It's just that they now know that your email, and many of the emails they have are useless because they're no longer in use or they've been misspelled or whatever. But you've just told them that my email, Jeff_Kalbrisky@earthlink.net, that's a good email. And these scammers, these criminals, that's what they are, actually sell the stuff on the internet. So they'll take 10,000 people who reply to that unsubscribe. They know those are 10,000 good emails, and they'll sell them to other scammers for a penny an email or something like that. And so never, ever click on the unsubscribe. In fact, even if it's a good company, don't bother with clicking on the unsubscribe. And so last slide here, and then we're going to break. I want to take questions as well. What are they trying to do? Very clever. They want your browser to go to somewhere on the internet, a website of their choosing, and they call this phishing. It's phishing spelled with a PH, phishing, right? And that website is probably a fake website. If this email is pretending to come from, let us say, your bank, that email will look like your bank. It will look like Bank of America or Wells Fargo, because it's really easy to copy the layout of somebody else's website, and then you're going to enter your account number and your password and all kinds of stuff, and obviously now you've just given them the keys to your kingdom. Remember what I said about allowing them in the door. So by clicking on a link like this, which will land you up on some fake website, they now own you, right? You have opened the door into your computer, and indirectly through your computer or your phone, you've opened the door to your assets, to yourself. And you could now be in deep trouble financially. And sometimes it gets even worse because, I've heard of people who, once they found out who they were and that they had some money and where they were, the guys physically arrived. It ended up with violence and so on. Not very often these days, but it has happened. So don't click on those links. Never click on the links, right? And realize that everything they're doing is phishing, right? That they will technically own you. And there it is. You see that one there. There's a guy behind the computer phishing into her pocketbook. So I'll end off right here with Jeff's rule number 1. And I want everybody to say this aloud. Never, ever click on a link in an email. Everybody say that aloud, please. Never, ever click on a link in an email. Links in emails are very, very dangerous. Most good organizations, your bank and so on, mostly will not do that. Sometimes they do with marketing, because marketing guys tend not to follow the rules, but mostly your bank will not send you anything like that, right? The IRS will certainly not send you any kind of email that requires you to click on it so that you can pay taxes that you haven't paid or some such garbage. So remember my rule number 1, never, ever click on a link. In fact, I suppose it's really rule number 2, because maybe rule number 3. Rule number 1 is don't use a debit card. Rule number 2 is don't answer the phone if you don't recognize the number. And rule number 3 perhaps is never, ever click on a link. But the other ones are small potatoes compared to this one, right? Because this one is the most disastrous thing of all. So I'll break at that point. I hope it hasn't been too fast for you guys. I've tried to really go through it quickly. I'll slow down a bit in the next 2 sessions, but I wanted to catch up with those who were not who didn't get online last week. So I'm more than happy now to take some questions. If there are any questions, please unmute your phone and ask away. No questions. Well, either everybody understood everything or everybody didn't understand anything. No, I'm just kidding you. If you have questions, I hope you wrote my email down, Jeff_Kalbrisky@earthlink.net. So you can either send me the email and ask for these slides, and I promise you I'll send them, within 24 hours. So you'll have them by next week for sure. Or you can include questions in there as well. If you have any questions of things that have happened to you, or and don't be embarrassed. If you did click on one of these links, or you did click on an unsubscribe, don't be embarrassed. The majority of people have done that. And in fact, the minority that will not get scammed really is a very small percentage of people that have been to courses like this. Very, very small number of people. And that's how, getting right back, sorry, I mentioned the city of Atlanta, for example. How did the city of Atlanta get, quote, hacked? They didn't get hacked. Some idiot somewhere in one of the departments of the city of Atlanta got this wonderful email saying, you can get $5,000 in cash, and they clicked on it to see what it was, and pow, the whole, you've let the bad guys in the door, and they are going to steal your TV set, and they're going to steal your bed, and they're going to steal the pictures off the walls in your house, right? They're going to take everything. So when I read these stories, I get really mad because the press don't understand the first thing. They love to say they got hacked, but nobody gets hacked. As I said before, your phone and your computer are very secure indeed these days. So when you get hacked, quote unquote, it's because you clicked on a link and opened the door, either on your phone or on your computer or on your tablet. You open the door. Once they get in the door, all bets are off. Just as, if I leave the front door of my house open, go away for a week, all bets are off on what I'm going to find when I get home. Right. Okay, thank you very much. I will stay online for a few more minutes if there are any questions or discussions or anything like that. Otherwise, I will see you same station, same place, same link next week for the next exciting episode of How Not to Get Ripped Off on the Internet.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jeff.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Let's see.